Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. It's Sunday, October the 3rd, 2021. Our recitation today is Gauri Gwareri Mahalla Chautha. Satgur Seva Safal hai Banee, jit mil har naam te aaya har tani, jin har japya तिन पीछे छूटी गणी, गुरसिख हर बोलो मेरे भाई, हर बोलत सब पाप लह जाई रहाओ। जब गुर मिलया तब मन वस आया, तावत पंच रहे हर त्याया, अन दिन नगरी हर गुण गाया। सतगुर पग धूर जिना मुख लाई, तिन कूड़ त्यागे हर लिवलाई, ते हर दरगह मुख उज्जल पाई। गुर सेवा आप हर भावै, कृष्ण पल भद्र गुर पग लग ध्यावै, नानक गुरमुख हर आप तरावै। The passage stresses, like many and most other passages from Gurbani, on the importance of the Satgur in the life of a Sikh. So service to the true enlightener, the Satgur, is always fruitful. Satgur Seva Safal hai Banee. Service means service. When you are in the service of someone, it always involves a degree of sacrifice. So the sacrifice that is being demanded here in the service of the Satgur is the sacrifice of one's own ego and the associated thought framework that goes with it. Not an easy task, but the reward is very fruitful, safal. So Satgur is what we need. Meeting the Satgur, the richness of the herself, the self within. When they fix their minds on the self within, and this is something that the Satgur teaches you, then they begin to experience the har in all its richness. Jit mil har naam te aaya har tani. Tani, of course, has several connotations. It means the owner, rich. We've preferred to use the word richness here in this particular passage to denote the rich texture of the har self, the potential with which it resides in you, and the many faceted dimensions that are possible because of the self. And of course, jin har japya tin piche chuti gani. Multitudes have found redemption by following those who have actually united with the self. So this is not very different from the previous Shabad, where the Guru was stressing the transient nature of worldly attachments. Or sab preet maya moh kacha. The point is being carried forward here to say that the only love that is lasting and bears fruit is service to the Satgur. So in Gur wisdom lies true richness. And in the Rahao, the Guru says, Gur Sikh har bolo mere bhai, har bolat sab paap leh jai. So this is an admonition, a call to all of us, where he says, my brethren Gur Sikh, recite the har self. By reciting the har self, all transgressions of hukam will be overcome. So paap has been translated, as we are trying to do, as a transgression of hukam. In other words, in Gurbani does not take the same view of Pap Pun as the established traditions did and still do. Because as Guru Amar Das says in Anand Sahib, Simrit Sastra Pap Pun Bicharde Tatte Sarna Jani, saying that they're preoccupied with Pap and Pun, but they haven't really found the essence of Pap and Pun. It really is, you're either in Hukam or you're not. And the other recognition with this is that whatever is happening, good or bad as it appears to you, is in Hukam. And we tend to resist what we don't like, and it is that resistance that we have to give up, because we have to realize that we are not running the show, and we don't control the show. We have very little control over it. So therefore, being in acceptance of what is happening is actually sab paap leh jai, because then you're in complete harmony. And then here he's saying har bolo, har bolat, and we've translated it as recitation, bolna. But we also know that in Gurbani, merely reciting har or Vaheguru for that matter will not itself lead to the self, right? Because Guruji has said in many places, Ram Ram sab ko kahe, kahe Ram na hoye, and so on. So we have to be careful in parsing passages because they have their own context. The question here becomes, why is recitation or uttering being recommended here? And a lot of modern English translators have tended to shy away from this literal meaning. But in our view, this is not something that we should try and avoid, but understand. So let's see if we can make sense of recitation. Notice in the first verse, Japya and Tyaya was also used in the context of herself. So the injunction appears to be that we must recite, we must reflect, we must contemplate, and we must focus our attention. All are part of the transformation that we seek. So recitation becomes the initial step that should lead to reflection and attentiveness. Bolat then becomes the foundation of a paradigm shift that will eventually happen. Because remember, bolat or one's speech is also indicative of one's character and personality. So we should not dismiss recitation. Yes, of course, the Guru is absolutely, when the Guru says, Ram Ram sab ko kahe, kahe Ram na hoye, that is being said in another context, and that is true as well. Because if you just simply recite without the reflection, without the attention, without attentiveness, then it doesn't really help. So we have to be cautious. Jab gur milya tab man vas aaya, dhavat panch rahe har tyaya, andin nagari har gun gaya. So the mind is controlled when Gur wisdom is imbibed. Dhavat. Dhavat is the running mind, the mind that is unstable. When it begins to pay heed to Gur wisdom, the senses become more restrained. You need that as a precondition. You cannot have your thoughts running all over the place and expect that you'll be able to turn inwards. You cannot. So the first step is to actually calm the mind down in order for knowledge of the Har Self to even awaken within you. So the inner chatter of the mind is the foremost barrier to achieving oneness. The mind has often been likened to a wild monkey, unable to be still. It is impossible for intuitive awareness to arise if our thoughts are scattered. So the mind that sits at the feet of the Satgur learns to renounce the love of transitory things and gradually becomes centered in the Har Self. Satgur Pagatur Jinni Mukh Laya Tin Kood Tyagge Har Levelai. So those who sit at the feet of the Satgur, in other words, under the tutorship of the Satgur. And Gur Seva Aap Har Pave, Krishan Par Padra Gur Pag Lag Tyave, a reference to Krishna. Krishna, incidentally, is also a metaphor for the mind. But this could be taken in both ways. The historical Krishna and his brother both learned and were tutored by the Satgur. And if you think of Krishna as a metaphor for the mind, then yes, the mind needs to be tutored by Guru wisdom. In either case, the same message is being delivered. And those who are tutored by Guru wisdom and are guided are ferried across by Har itself. The self then guides you through life. Nanak Gurmukh Har Aap Tarave. On that note, until the next time, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.